We are going to talk about the most important meal of the day, breakfast. But we are going to talk about it in a way that you may never have heard before. I want you to start by picturing a typical morning. You wake up, you go to your kitchen, and you make a conscious decision to start your day on the right foot. You want to do something good for your body, something healthy. So you reach for that box with the big, red heart on it, or that container of yogurt that proudly proclaims it is fat-free, or that comforting packet of instant oatmeal that promises to warm you from the inside out. You are acting with the best of intentions, based on decades of health advice you have heard from doctors, from advertisements, and from the culture all around you. You are doing everything right, or so you think. But then something happens. By 10:30 in the morning, you feel that familiar slump. Your energy plummets, your mind feels a little foggy, and you find yourself reaching for a cookie or another cup of coffee just to make it through to lunchtime. You might notice that despite your healthy choices, you're still struggling with your weight, especially around the midsection. You might feel like you're constantly fighting cravings for sugary or starchy foods. It is a frustrating and confusing cycle. You feel like you are doing all the right things, but your body is simply not responding the way you want it to. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain and uncover the reason why. We are going to expose a difficult but liberating truth. Many of the foods that have been marketed to us for decades as the cornerstones of a healthy breakfast are, in fact, metabolic saboteurs, especially for a body over the age of 60. The nutritional advice of the 1980s and 90s, the era of the low-fat craze, has left a long and damaging legacy. We were taught to fear fat, to prioritize carbohydrates, and to trust the health claims printed in bold letters on the front of a box. Today, we are going to unlearn those outdated lessons. We are going to act as detectives, looking past the clever marketing and turning our attention to the one place the truth cannot hide: the nutrition label. We will identify 4 specific so-called healthy breakfast foods that are likely wrecking your metabolism, and we will explore in detail the biological reasons why. But this will not be a conversation about fear or deprivation. It is a conversation about empowerment. For each of these metabolic wrecking balls, I will offer you a simple, delicious, and profoundly superior swap that will work with your body's biology, not against it. Before we begin this critical exploration, I must state with the utmost importance that this information is for educational purposes. It is designed to help you become a more informed and empowered advocate for your own health. It is not a substitute for personalized medical advice. You should always speak with your doctor or a registered dietitian before making significant changes to your diet, especially if you have pre-existing conditions like diabetes or heart disease. They are your most valuable partners. So, let us begin this journey together. Let's open up the pantry, look into the refrigerator, and start the essential work of building a breakfast that truly nourishes, sustains, and revitalizes a body in its prime. Before we single out our first culprit, it is absolutely essential that we understand why our bodies after 60 have different needs. Why does a breakfast that you might have eaten at 30 now have such a different effect? The answer lies in the beautiful and natural evolution of our metabolism. There are 2 key concepts we must grasp. The first is sarcopenia. This is the medical term for the gradual, age-related loss of muscle mass. Beginning as early as our 40s, this process can accelerate after 60 if we are not proactive. This is not a cosmetic issue. Your muscle is your body's primary metabolic engine. It is the tissue that burns the most calories, even when you are at rest. It acts like a giant storage tank for glucose, helping to soak up sugar from your bloodstream. As we lose muscle mass, our metabolic rate naturally slows down. We simply don't burn calories as efficiently as we used to. This means the margin for error in our diet becomes much smaller. The second, and equally important, concept is insulin resistance. Insulin is a crucial hormone that acts like a key, unlocking our body's cells to allow glucose, or blood sugar, to enter and be used for energy. As we age, our cells can become a little bit deaf to insulin's message. They become resistant. This means our pancreas has to shout louder. It has to pump out more and more insulin to do the same job of clearing sugar from our bloodstream. This state of high insulin is a major driver of fat storage, particularly stubborn belly fat, and it is a precursor to type 2 diabetes. So the 2 golden rules for a healthy metabolism after 60 are these. First, we must do everything in our power to preserve our precious muscle mass, which means prioritizing protein. Second, we must manage our blood sugar levels with extreme care, which means minimizing our intake of foods that cause a rapid spike in blood sugar. A breakfast that ignores these two rules is a breakfast that is actively working against your body's current biology. And this brings us to our first, and perhaps most beloved, breakfast imposter. Let's open the pantry door and look at that long, narrow box of instant oatmeal packets. It feels so wholesome, doesn't it? The packaging often features images of rolling fields of oats, and it's frequently fortified with vitamins and minerals. The most popular versions, with flavors like maple and brown sugar, or apples and cinnamon, seem like a comforting and sensible way to start the day. For decades, we have been told that oatmeal is heart-healthy and a good source of fiber. This is the myth. Now let's uncover the reality. I want you to mentally pick up that box and turn it over to the nutrition facts panel. The first thing I want you to look at is the ingredient list. For a flavor like maple and brown sugar, you will often find that the second ingredient, right after the oats, is sugar. You will then see a list of other forms of sugar, like corn syrup solids or artificial sweeteners. Now slide your eyes over to the line that says added sugars. You will be shocked to see that a single small packet can contain anywhere from 10 to 15 grams of added sugar. That is the equivalent of 3 to 4 teaspoons of pure sugar. You would never dream of scooping 4 teaspoons of sugar onto a plain bowl of cereal. Yet we consume it without a second thought from these packets. This massive, immediate hit of sugar is the first metabolic strike. The second strike comes from the nature of the oats themselves. Instant oats are not the same as old-fashioned or steel-cut oats. To make them cook in 1 minute, they are pre-cooked, rolled incredibly thin, and then dehydrated. This process pulverizes the oat grain, stripping away much of its fibrous structure. This means that from a digestive standpoint, your body treats these instant oats almost like a refined flour. They are incredibly high on the glycemic index, which means they are converted into glucose and hit your bloodstream with breathtaking speed. So what we have is a double whammy. A huge dose of added sugar combined with a highly processed carbohydrate that acts like sugar. Now let's trace the metabolic wreckage this causes in a body over 60. You eat this bowl of sweet, instant oatmeal. Your blood sugar shoots up like a rocket. Your pancreas, which is already working harder due to age-related insulin resistance, goes into emergency mode. It pumps out a huge surge of insulin to try and deal with this flood of sugar. The insulin frantically works to push the sugar out of your bloodstream. Some of it might get used for immediate energy, but because there is so much, the insulin signals your body to store the excess as fat, particularly around your abdomen. Then about an hour to 90 minutes later, the inevitable crash happens. The insulin has done its job too well. Your blood sugar plummets, leaving you feeling tired, foggy, and irritable. And what does your brain crave when your blood sugar is low? More sugar. This is the vicious cycle that this supposedly healthy breakfast initiates. So what is the superior swap? It is to embrace the oat in its less processed, more robust forms, steel-cut oats or old-fashioned rolled oats. Yes, they take a little longer to cook, but the metabolic payoff is immense. These oats have their fibrous structure intact, meaning they are digested much more slowly, providing a gentle, rolling hill release of energy, not a rocket ship spike. But we can do even better. We can transform this simple bowl into a metabolic powerhouse. Instead of cooking your oats in water, cook them in milk or unsweetened almond milk to add a base of protein. While they are cooking, stir in a tablespoon of chia seeds or ground flax seeds. This adds a huge boost of fiber, healthy omega-3 fats, and even more protein. Once they are cooked, top them not with sugar, but with a handful of fresh berries for natural sweetness and antioxidants, and a sprinkle of walnuts or almonds for healthy fats and protein. This is no longer just a bowl of carbs. It is a balanced, nutrient-dense meal that provides protein to feed your muscles, and fiber and healthy fats to ensure a slow, steady release of energy that will keep you full, focused, and satisfied all morning long. This is how you build a breakfast that works for you. Now let's move from the pantry to the refrigerator and take a look at our second culprit. This one is a direct legacy of the low-fat craze that dominated the last few decades of the 20th century. We are talking about fat-free flavored yogurt. It seems like the perfect diet food, doesn't it? It's light, it's often packaged in single-serving cups, it's easy to grab and go, and it proudly proclaims its fat-free status right on the front. We were taught that fat was the enemy, the nutrient that made us fat and clogged our arteries. So choosing a fat-free yogurt felt like a virtuous, health-conscious decision. This is the myth that sold millions of containers of yogurt. The reality is a metabolic Trojan horse. Here is a fundamental truth of food science. When you remove fat from a food product, you remove the two things that make it taste good and feel good in your mouth: flavor and texture. Fat is what provides richness and a creamy mouthfeel. When manufacturers took the fat out of yogurt to appeal to the low-fat craze, they were left with a product that was thin, chalky, and unpleasantly tart. Nobody would eat it. So, what did they do to make it palatable again? They replaced the fat with something else: sugar. They pumped these fat-free yogurts full of an astonishing amount of sugar, along with modified food starches and artificial flavors to try and mimic the taste and texture of the real thing. Let's do our detective work. I want you to mentally pick up a container of a typical fruit on the bottom, or other flavored fat-free yogurt. Turn it over and look at the nutrition label. Don't be distracted by the claims of probiotics or calcium. Go straight to the added sugars line. You will see numbers that will make your jaw drop. A single, small 6-ounce container can contain anywhere from 15 to 25 grams of added sugar. That's 4 to 6 teaspoons of sugar. To put that in perspective, that is the same amount of sugar you would find in a candy bar or a small bowl of ice cream. We have been starting our day, with the best of intentions, by eating a dessert. Let's trace the metabolic damage. It is an almost identical story to the instant oatmeal. This massive, fast-acting sugar load, with no fat or significant fiber to slow it down, causes an immediate and dramatic spike in your blood sugar. Your pancreas sounds the alarm, releasing a flood of insulin. The insulin works overtime to clear the sugar, promoting fat storage in the process. And then comes the crash. But there's an added problem here. Because this yogurt contains no fat, it has almost zero satiety value. Fat is the nutrient that signals to our brain that we are full and satisfied. When we eat a fat-free, high-sugar meal, our hunger is not satiated. So, not only do you get the energy crash, but you are also left feeling hungry again in about an hour, which leads directly to mid-morning snacking and a continuation of the blood sugar roller coaster. The superior swap is elegant in its simplicity. Switch to plain, unsweetened, full-fat or at least 2% Greek yogurt. Let's break down why this is a metabolic game-changer. First, Greek yogurt is strained, which removes much of the whey and liquid, leaving a product that is incredibly thick, creamy, and most importantly packed with protein. A single serving can have 15 to 20 grams of high-quality protein, which is a phenomenal way to feed your muscles and combat sarcopenia. Second, by choosing full fat, you are reintroducing the very nutrient that provides that deep, lasting sense of fullness. The healthy dairy fat will keep you satisfied for hours. Third, by choosing plain, you are taking back control. You are starting with a clean slate that has zero added sugar. And fourth, you are still getting the wonderful benefit of live and active cultures, the probiotics that are so beneficial for our gut health. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but plain yogurt is so sour. Here is where the empowerment comes in. You become the chef. You add the flavor. Swirl in a handful of fresh or frozen berries. They provide natural sweetness and a huge dose of fiber and antioxidants. Add a sprinkle of chopped walnuts for more healthy fat and a satisfying crunch. A dash of cinnamon can add warmth and has its own blood sugar balancing properties. You get to create a breakfast that is creamy, delicious, and deeply satisfying. One that provides a powerhouse of protein, a dose of healthy fat, and a gentle source of energy that will keep you steady and strong all morning long. Now let's turn our attention back to the pantry for our third metabolic monster, a product that is perhaps the most heavily marketed health food in the entire grocery store. We are talking about heart-healthy box breakfast cereals. The front of these boxes is a masterclass in deceptive marketing. They are covered in official-looking seals, claims like made with whole grains, a good source of fiber, or even the official heart check mark from the American Heart Association. We see cereals like Cheerios Raisin Bran, or bags of supposedly healthy granola, and we are conditioned to believe that these are a sensible, responsible choice for our health. This is one of the most pervasive and damaging myths of modern nutrition. To understand the reality, we need to understand how these cereals are made. Most of them are created through a violent industrial process called extrusion. In this process, grains are ground into a fine flour, mixed with water and other ingredients, and then forced through a machine at extremely high temperatures and high pressure. This process is what creates the familiar O-shapes, flakes, and puffs. While this is a very efficient way to manufacture food, it is devastating to the nutritional integrity of the grain. The high heat and pressure destroy many of the naturally occurring vitamins and essentially pre-digest the starches. This makes the carbohydrates in boxed cereal incredibly easy for our body to break down and absorb, meaning they are extremely high on the glycemic index. Even a cereal made from whole grains becomes a fast-acting sugar in your bloodstream once it has gone through this process. And then, of course, there is the sugar content itself. Even cereals that are not candy-colored or covered in frosting are often loaded with sugar. A serving of a common Raisin Bran cereal can have close to 20 grams of sugar, much of it from the raisins, which are a highly concentrated source of sugar, and from added sugar in the coating on the flakes. So-called healthy granola is often one of the worst offenders, with clusters that are held together by a glaze of sugar, corn syrup, and oil, often containing more sugar per serving than a frosted cereal. So what we have is a food that is made from pulverized, highly processed grains, often with a large dose of added sugar, and with very little protein or healthy fat to buffer its metabolic impact. The metabolic wreckage is, by now, a familiar story, but it is often made worse by how we consume it. We typically pour a bowl of this high-carb cereal, and then douse it with fat-free skim milk, another relic of the low-fat era. This combination creates what I call a perfect storm for a metabolic crash. It is a meal composed almost entirely of fast-acting carbohydrates with virtually no protein or fat to slow down digestion. The blood sugar spike is immediate and massive. The insulin response is equally dramatic. The subsequent energy crash and the rebound cravings for more carbohydrates are almost guaranteed. It is a breakfast that sets you up for a day of metabolic instability. So, what are the